Hi everybody, Jenny here. Just wanted to introduce what we were going to talk about today. It's a beautiful day in Tampa, Florida, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about your first step into becoming a scuba diver, which is having the right gear for the right time. So whether you are going on a trip and getting your gear for that, or you're about to do a scuba class and you need your own mass snorkel fins, this video is going to explain to you the different types of mass snorkel fins, boots. We're even going to go into some accessories like SMBs and whistles, and hopefully give you a nice educated decision to make on your next personal gear. So stay tuned.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Today we're going to talk a little bit about masks. There are so many different types of masks that sometimes it can be very overwhelming. So we're going to try to break it down for you. Here I have a few examples of masks, and immediately you can see that there's a difference between them. We have the dual lens mask that has two separate lenses, and then we also have a frameless or a single lens. The difference between a framed mask and a frameless is there's only silicone and the lens, and it's typically one section of glass, whereas the framed lenses have two sections. So we usually call that dual. Once you have looked at all the different types of masks, we want you just to try them on. Don't look at style or color or price. The most important thing right now is if it's a good fit. So there's a few things that you can do to make sure you have a good fit. And the first one is just don't use the strap at all. And then put the silicone skirt on your face like this. And what you're going to try to do is just adjust it so it feels comfortable. Like if it doesn't feel comfortable to you, try another one. This is more of a process of elimination at the beginning to determine which ones absolutely don't work. This one I can tell already is a small one, so I don't like that, and I'm going to change to another one. So I have it on and I've adjusted. I make sure that the skirt is not folded in so it would leak. And once I have it nice and snug on my face, I am going to inhale through my nose and hold my breath. So right now I'm not breathing out of my nose. So it sounds like I have a cold, and that's good because this is kind of mimicking the pressure of what your mask is going to feel like until you equalize underwater. So once I blow in, or breathe in, I should say, and then I want to try to take it off and see if I've created a nice seal. And you should hear that nice seal, that nice little pop. So once you have found a bunch, we have divers come through and try different masks and put them down as good, better, do not work. So that's your process of elimination. And then go back to the ones that are really, really good and then compare those. So you're just going to be comparing your mask and eliminating the ones that don't work. After that, you can put on the strap. But what we want you to look for, and I'm going to put it on a clear mask. I'm going to put on a clear mask to show you. You want to make sure that the mask skirt is not too far down or too far up from your nose or the top of your lip. So it should kind of set right in the middle. You want to make sure that the corners of your eyes and your eyebrows are not on the mask skirt. And you want to make sure that the mask skirt up top is not on your hairline. A few little pieces of hair can make it leak. So you want to make sure that's kind of your finishing touches to make sure that you've got a proper fitting mask. Then after you have your mask, when you're either in class or if you're in a class or if you're just diving, you're already certified, you want to kind of manage your mask and make it work for you. And there's three things that you can do. One is you do have a little leeway with your mask being up or down. Sometimes a mask will leak a little bit going down, my mask will go down on my face and it'll leak, and I have to push it up a little bit. So you want to make sure you have a proper fit on your face. Second is where you put this mask strap. It's very important that it's a little bit higher up on the crown of your head, and it'll actually seal it better down below. So if you're getting water leakage down here, just put this mask strap a little bit higher up on the crown of your head, and it should have a nice tight seal. Then the third is just how tight and how loose you make it. So you want to adjust that. Sometimes too tight will actually make it leak more. Comfort is one of the things that is going to be very important to you, obviously, because you're going to be wearing your mask underwater for many hours. Whether you're scuba diving and or snorkeling. So a few of the things that you can look at is what type of silicone it has and how that silicone is shaped. One of the most important things is the nose pocket. So many different brands have many different types of masks suitable for many different types of faces. So there are bigger nose pockets, bigger, wider scuba masks, and there are some that have bigger and wider silicone skirts. So that's something that you might consider is a wider silicone skirt, maybe a larger or smaller nose pocket. The other thing that you want to look at is the double seal. Very good masks will have a double seal to stay on your face. Very, very nice. Sometimes you might want to use a lower volume mask. This is a freediving mask, but it can very much be used for scuba diving. So this is for smaller stature people, like just smaller people, youth, are able to use freediving masks. The only thing with freediving masks is they are just as good as a scuba diving mask. However, they are much lower volume. Therefore, the glass, the lenses are closer to your eye, so you can see just as much out of this one as you can with this one. And there's another way that you can see if it's a properly fitting mask and it suctions to your face. And then is just put it on, make sure that's nice and comfortable, and then just push it in on your face and see if it suctions. And it did that for me, because now my eyeballs are bulging out. So another thing that you want to look for regarding comfort is where your mask sits on the bridge of your nose, in between your eyes. Sometimes that can kind of pinch people right there. So you want to make sure that it is comfortable, you don't feel it. You want to make sure your nose and your cheeks aren't sitting on the lens. That means that it's probably too small for you. So you want to make sure that it doesn't hurt here or the lenses are touching your cheeks. You might need a little bit bigger mask. Let's talk about fashion and style now, all right? Once you found a safe, form-fitting mask that's comfortable to your face and your head, now you're going to start looking at other features, predominantly color. You want your, everybody wants to have their mask, snorkel, and fins be styling and nice and matching. You don't have to, it's not necessary, but if you want to, we've got plenty of different colors and styles for you. If you've noticed, I've been holding up a lot of masks. This is a clear skirted mask, and this is a solid skirted mask. There's not much difference. Sometimes the silicone can feel a little bit different, and so different silicones feel different on different faces. So one softer silicone might feel better than a harder silicone, and vice versa. The clear mask, sometimes people mistakenly believe that they can actually see more. You really can't, because you're just looking forward. But what can happen is if there's sun rays coming in in the ocean, you can sometimes get reflection and refraction of the sunlight, and it could be a little annoying or a little bit disconcerting seeing the reflection and reflection of the sunlight. So a lot of times most people prefer a solid mask skirt, so then it kind of hones in that light and you can see things a little bit better. With the tinted one, this kind of helps with the contrast. It's almost like an HD, high definition. It kind of pops out things. So sometimes people like having a little bit tinted. You can choose that, or you can choose an ultra clear glass, where this glass is made in Europe and they actually take the green Coke bottle color out of the glass. If you've ever taken pictures underwater, you've noticed that there's a lot of green in it. The ultra clear glass actually takes out all that green sediment and makes it a little bit clearer, so you see the colors as they stand alone in the water. All right, now that we've talked about fit, comfort, and fashion, now we got to talk about a few accessories. One of the accessories that's pretty major is your strap, your mask strap. This brand has one that's already connected to it. It is neoprene and it has some adjustable buckles. The other straps that you saw typically come with the silicone that matches the same silicone that's on your mask skirt. There are two straps on the back here, so you can kind of stretch it on your head so it's form-fitting on the back of your head. This is a totally acceptable, appropriate mask strap. However, if you have any type of hair, it might pull your hair. Therefore, we have different types of mask straps that replace that silicone one. This replaces the entire buckle system with Velcro, and it's all neoprene, and it replaces, like I said earlier, that entire silicone one. And this goes on nice and easy back and forth on your head. And especially if you're taking an open water class where you're going to be doing 3 to 6 different mask clearing skills, we want to make sure that you can have easy on, easy off, and it's not getting hooked up to your hair. So this is one that replaces it. And here's another one that's a little bit different. It's patterned after kind of a ski goggles. And this one's very, very comfortable as well. There's all sorts of different kinds that you can choose from. This brand absolutely has different types of accessories. You can change the color, trim on your mask, and you can put a completely different mask strap on it. If you have facial hair, you may have difficulty sealing your mask and it may leak a little bit. So there's a couple of things you can do. The first thing you can do is shave off your mustache. If that's not an option, you might want to use this mask seal. It is a non-petroleum based product that won't disturb the environment or ruin your mask. If you use petroleum jelly, that's not very good for the environment. And it also might start degrading your silicone your mask skirt, sorry. So this is really good to have, is mask seal. It only takes a little bit. You just put it on your mustache and you put it on your mask skirt for a little bit extra. Finally, the last accessory that you may need is scrub and defog. So scrub and defog, if you don't want your mask to be foggy all the time, you definitely want to take care of it and scrub off the silicone that has created a layer on your lenses. With the mask scrub, you're going to want to pour it on the inside of your lenses and scrub it hard with your fingers or a nice soft toothbrush or a cloth, and keep scrubbing it and scrubbing it. And that's because there is an invisible layer of silicone on this. We've talked a lot about silicone, and since this skirt is made out of silicone, it actually takes 3 years to fully cure. And with that means that it's constantly off-gassing, and it's putting an invisible layer of silicone on the lens that when you put it on, it's going to start fogging up. And the whole point of diving is to see the pretty blue fishies. So we want to properly scrub our new mask as many times as it takes. It might take 1 time, it might take 2 or 3 times, depending on how much invisible silicone's on that. But you just want to pour this in, and you want to scrub it, and then rinse it clear, and then dry it. And then what you can do to see if you did a good job is to just breathe into it and see if you did a good job or not. I didn't do a good job with this one. All right, so you have finished scrubbing your mask. You've blown on it. It's nice and clear. Now you're ready for your dive. You want to take a teeny tiny bit of defog and put a little tiny drop in each one, spread it out with your finger, and then just gently slosh it in the water. You don't want to put too much on it because that's just a waste, and you don't want to just rinse it all off. You kind of want to have like an invisible layer of it. So when you buy these products, you want to make sure that you follow the directions and follow it properly, and you want to make sure you get the brands that all brands are good, but you don't want to do the crazy stuff that's on YouTube and online about burning the silicone off or using toothpaste, because if you do scratch your mask or ruin your mask, the warranty is not going to be covered for things like that. So you will hear some crazy things online on how to take care of that. Just invest a few bucks, like $5.95, on something like this to keep your mask nice and clear.
This is Alex with Adventure Outfitters, and right now we're going to be talking about snorkels. So it's an important piece of gear, required piece of gear for the open water and pretty much all recreational classes, but there's a lot of different kinds, so we're here to talk about that now. So we'll start with the original type of snorkel. This is called a J-tube. So it's basically just one solid tube with a mouthpiece and an open bore on the top. Really simple snorkel, really preferred by freedivers for different reasons. Typically because it's simple, it's lightweight, it's cheap, and with the large bore and no obstructions, you get a lot of airflow for it. We don't typically use these for scuba diving though, because they're hard to clear. So basically if you get water in the snorkel, your mouth's here, you gotta blow up and out the whole snorkel to clear it. So there are some different designs that make it easier for us. So the next major design would be the semi-dry snorkel. So most of these will have a valve on the bottom. So if you have water in the snorkel, it goes to the bottom, you blow it out. That's a lot easier than this, as you can imagine. Why is it called a semi-dry? Well, the top will typically have some type of diverter to stop like wave action or water from splashing in. You know, it's not completely dry. You dive underwater, it's going to fill with water, but it does keep a little bit of water out of the snorkel. So it's a decent snorkel for what you're doing. That's the semi-dry. The next major design is the dry snorkel. So most of these scuba snorkels, like I said, are going to have a valve on the bottom. Some have exposed valves, some have protected valves. The dry snorkel has, and there's different mechanisms here, but this is a clear one that's easy to see. There's a float inside of it that as you go underwater, it closes the top. So these are really nice if you're casually snorkeling and you just happen to dip your head under the water. It's still fairly easy to clear, but if there's no water in it, you don't have to do anything. You can keep breathing. So these are a really popular model. Like with everything, there are pros and cons. So one of the cons would be it's just a little more complicated. They do tend to cost a little bit more, but there's different versions and different prices for all these different models. They do have to neck the top a little smaller so it seals better. So you're not going to get as much airflow as you would with like an open bore or some of the other snorkels we'll talk about. So if you're really huffing and puffing down a current or something like that, doing something physical, the dry snorkel might not be for you. It's really good for just easy snorkeling. You don't want any water in it. That's kind of what that's for. Some designs you have to be a little careful because if you suck on them real hard, you might be able to close the snorkel, which you wouldn't want, but most of them don't really do that. But it is a possibility if you hit it just the right angle, just the right breath, something like that. But very common design, very popular snorkel. So then what my favorite snorkel is the atomic snorkel. Atomic makes really nice stuff. This is the SV1. This is SV2. They have an SV1 as well. SV stands for scupper valve. So this is essentially a really nice semi-dry snorkel, but it has some other features that I would say notch it to the best size. So one, it's got a really large bore, so you're moving a lot of air through it. It has no dry mechanism, so it doesn't neck down the top. You can't suck it closed. The SV2s have a really nice diverter, which you can see it flares at the tip, so you get a lot of airflow from it, but it's pretty hard for water to splash into it unless you dive down. If you do get water into it, it has the scupper valve. So basically you see the one-way valve here. There's another one-way valve inside the snorkel itself. So as you're get a little bit of water in there, maybe not a good mouthpiece control or something, the water will go into the wet chamber down below and be out of your breathing loop. So it does act like a scupper valve, which is pretty nice. Clears really easily, breathes really nice. If you want a really nice breathing snorkel, it's probably the top of the line right there. Now there's a couple of different things I can show you too. So you guys might have seen the foldable snorkel, popular with open water dive instructors that don't want to carry a snorkel on their mask. They can put this in their pocket, and then when it's time, maybe they've got a long boat swim or a surface swim, they could unroll it and then put it on their mask. I'm not a huge fan of these myself. As you can see, this is one that's been folded up. This is not going to work very well in the water. Kind of a common theme is if it can do two things, it doesn't do either one very well. So unless you really want it for that specific purpose, I'd probably recommend against it. And I would recommend against keeping it rolled tight. This is a little bit nicer one from Aqualung. As you can see, it's a decent J-tube snorkel. It comes with the same little clamshell thing, and you can roll it up, but I probably wouldn't because you can kind of see the difference. Now, this is a little bit nicer snorkel, but they're both silicone, very similar. So, some other things to think about is the mouthpiece on the snorkel. Sometimes the mouthpiece is built onto the snorkel. If you bite this, the whole snorkel's done. Same thing with a lot of J-tubes. And then there are other snorkels that have like a whole special piece, like this bottom piece that can come off, and you can just get that bottom piece if you can find it. And then some of the nicer scuba snorkels will have a mouthpiece that can be removed off of the snorkel itself, and a lot of times it will fit a regular scuba mouthpiece as well. Now you probably still want to use the mouthpiece that it was intended to use. As you can see, this one curves a little bit, makes it a little easier when it's sitting on your mask, but you could probably put a normal mouthpiece on there as well. So there's not a lot of strain and stress on it. Most of them just pop on. There's no zip tie or anything like that. Last thing we can talk about is how do you attach it to your mask. There's a couple different options. The OG version of it is going to be a snorkel keeper. So there's this little figure 8 doohickey here. You're going to take this top part off, put your mask strap through here, and then reassemble it, and then you can move it where you want. They come in a bunch of different colors. Some are thicker than others. So that's a really nice way to do the snorkel. Attach it. You can keep where it is. It is harder to remove it and replace it, but you just have to stretch the silicone off. Not too bad. A lot of the other ones will have clips with different height adjustments. Some of them work better than others. Atomic one obviously is really nice. And then a lot of these have a quick disconnect, so you can keep the bracket on your mask, store your snorkel separate if you're not using it, and then you can just click it on and go from there. So that's kind of nice. Just don't lose that little clip. Last thing is snorkels are supposed to go on the left because our scuba regulator is on the right. Sometimes it doesn't really matter. If you're not diving, you're free diving, you can put this on either side. But a lot of snorkels are kind of curved one direction, as you can see, and that's for placement on the left-hand side. So you wouldn't want to dive the snorkel like this. It would still work, but you're not going to get the best results. So it really comes down to what you need for the open water scuba class. You need a snorkel that works. Probably steer away from something like that. If you're going to do a lot of free diving, a J-tube can work for both options, but not as fun for casual snorkeling. Easy casual snorkeling, the dry snorkel is a good option. And then if you're an avid snorkeler and just want the best performance, go for the spring for the nicer ones there. So that is all the information I've got on snorkels right now. Hey, this is Alex with Adventure Outfitters, and right now we're going to be talking about the different types of fins you can use while you're scuba diving. So, as you see, there's a lot of different designs, and there's even more. But basically, all the fins come down to 3 different styles, okay? So, you've got your blade fin, you've got your textile blade fin, and you have your split fin. So what are the differences? So let's start with the classic blade fin. So a lot of different designs. Basically, big extension for your foot. Give yourself some duck feet. The blade fin, and they vary in composition, but they're gonna be one of the more versatile styles of fins. So for flutter kicking, long, slow strokes from the hips with your knees straight are a really good way to get some speed. You can also frog kick. You can also backwards kick, and if you're good with your frog kick, you can even go up and down with that. So these generally will give you a decent amount of power and speed and control. On the split fin, a little bit different. Instead of more of a truck engine, you get more of a race car. So these are easier kicking due to the split design, so they're a little bit easier on the knees if somebody has trouble with that or just wants an easier kicking fin. They will give you a lot of speed and efficiency, but what they gain in that, you lose a little bit in control, which might not even be that important. So basically the way the split fin works is it's better with shorter, faster fin cycles. So instead of the long, slow blade kicks, a little bit shorter, faster fin cycles. And what that does is when these move at the right way, it creates a vortex behind the fin and propels you even faster. So once you get that little frequency down, you can move really fast and you'll be smoking people with blade fins with less effort. Also, if you can flick your ankles at just the right speed without even moving your legs, you can move along pretty fast too. I used to do that teaching open water. I just kind of flick my ankles and catch up with all my students as they're swimming along. So speed, efficiency, but not the best for like real technical frog kicking. And where did that really come into play? Like wreck penetration, cave diving, swimming over a small flat area with lots of silt, trying not to stir it up. You can do a lot with these two, but in a cave diving wreck environment, probably not the best choice for that. But anything else, fast and efficient, really nice fin. And now we're going to move from the blade fin to the kind of technical style blade fins, and there's definitely a little bit of spillover and change between models and brands, but typically you're going to get like the classic old school fin look, and they've come a long way too. There's different designs. The old style ones of these, like maybe in the 80s and before, were made out of neoprene rubber, which is really, really heavy, and they're basically a truck engine. So you get a lot of power out of them, and you can have a lot of control. But due to the really heavy nature of them, they can be very stiff and hard on the legs, and also could really mess up your buoyancy. Because most people, you know, if we're going to be a little feet heavy if this is your head. And so if you have heavy fins, that's just going to exacerbate that, and you'll be constantly trying to correct as you're swimming. We want to swim flat so we can just cut through the water with minimal effort. So if you can stay flat and stable, you're going to have a much more efficient kick, which is going to be less work for you and less gas you're going to use. So more bottom time, more diving, more fish, more fun. There are some different versions of these, and they vary quite a bit. Some you can adjust the weight in, some of the newer models, but really you don't need to really quite do that. Just pick a fin that works with your type of diving and your type of setup. So with different models, like the RK3s, for example, there's 2 different densities. There's a high density and a low density. It also depends if you're diving salt or fresh, but really, like for most people with a regular tank setup, a lightweight blade fin, technical style blade fin will work really well too. You know, you're very efficient with them. If you do a nice efficient frog kick, you can still flutter kick with them. There are a couple different variations. You can see these look a lot different, and they look kind of similar to these. Some fins have vents on them, which will make it a little easier to kick, but you won't get quite all the power out of it. Where a straight blade with no vents, you'll be able to get more push for every kick. It's going to be harder, but if you were in a race, a longer straight blade is going to be faster than a shorter vented blade. Some people like the shorter fins for real tight environments. The dive right fins, for example, are used in a variety of environments, and they're just fine too. Every fin's a little bit different, so some are better at backwards kicking than others, if that's even a concern for you guys. But all of these fins will be just fine for that. So again, we've got regular blade fin, which is just kind of a good all-around fin. We've got the split fins, which are kind of like a race car engine, so we go fast and efficiently. And then we've got the textile fins, more of a truck engine, but like I said, there's a lot of shifts from different models, you know, it just depends on the exact one. But really, just because it's a textile fin doesn't mean it's just for tech divers. Just make sure it's the right weight and it works for your diving, and we're going to help you out with that. A couple other things that are common to all the fins is how it connects to your feet. So these are open heel fins, so you put your foot in, you put the strap around the back, and there's a couple different styles. So you've got classic rubber fins straps, which you pull nice and snug, not too tight, on your foot. It's time to take it off. A lot of ours will have a quick release, so it's easy to take off. And then if you want to get it, you got it just right, you can clip it back on, easy. Or, you know, for best results to get it just right, maybe loosen it up just a little bit, put the buckle on, and then go ahead and tighten it when you get it back on your feet. They've made it easier. There's a couple different styles. So some of the more recreational fins will have various types of silicone bands here, which stretch, and you can put it on. You can make adjustments on these, but there's no removing and replacing buckles. There's no tightening of straps. You kind of set it and forget it. The silicone works well, but silicone, can be more tear prone if you get it cut in the right way. So a lot of times there'll be kind of a fancy honeycomb or something like that to give it extra strength, which that's not a bad option either. Best option is going to be spring straps. Some fins come with them. The textile ones generally do, so that's one of the reasons I like them. But you got a stainless steel spring, which for some reason I've never seen them rust. They're really good metal. You just put your foot in, put the strap on the back, and good to go. Some you can adjust a little bit, some you can't, but the size of the spring is usually based on the size of the fin, and it usually works out really well. The blade fins, there are some different designs in that same category. So there's, the tech one, but even in these two from the same brand, you've got one that's a little bit stiffer, so you'll probably get a little bit more power up front. You can see it's a little bit smaller profile. And then you've got the other blade fin, which you can see is a little bit wider, but it's got this softer rubber on the middle, so it has a little bit more give as you're swimming. So it'll just be a little bit different, so it'll be a little bit easier kicking, but you still get a lot of speed out of them, just the way they're designed as well. We're going to talk about snorkeling fins and closed heel fins and related fins in that category. So we talked about scuba fins, now let's talk about snorkeling fins. So generally these are what's going to be called closed heel. So there's no strap around the back, you just slip your foot in and go diving. They're typically made in 2-foot sizes, so you might not get a perfect fit. Different brands have different fits, so you really want to try these on and make sure they fit well for you. One of the things about the closed heel is might be a little too big, might be a little too small. You definitely want to wear a sock when you're swimming and diving with these, because the heel on even a good fit can rub against your heel and get you blisters on the back of your heel. Maybe 20 minutes of swimming, not a big deal. An hour or two, multiple days, definitely want to wear some kind of sock. It could be a thin lycra sock, it could be a thicker neoprene sock to maybe fill in some of the gaps on a larger fin, but that's something you probably want to do on these. Now to the snorkeling fin itself, these are generally cheaper, they're lightweight, and they're easy for snorkeling. They're usually pretty flexible, and they're much better than not wearing fins. But when we're talking scuba diving, you need to wear all that heavy equipment, swim through a current. These generally aren't going to be cut out for actual scuba diving, but fine for snorkeling, fine for light free diving, stuff like that. What else do we have? Well, there's even smaller fins that you see, even cheaper fins, and these might be closed heel. They might have some kind of rubber strap on the back. And these are going to be much less powerful, much less fast than even the other fins. And these are really just for playing around, giving you just a little boost besides kicking with your own power, with your own feet. A couple of the other ones, we've got freediving fins. So sometimes scuba divers use these, but pretty much mostly freedivers. So it's very long fins. You get a lot of efficiency and a lot of speed out of these. So for breath hold diving, that's key. And these really has a lot of different versions, but you'll have a foot pocket, again, usually 2 different sizes. Want to wear some kind of sock. A lot of times the blades are removable. There'll be plastic blades, there'll be fiberglass composite blades, and there'll be carbon fiber blades, which really give you some snap. When you're swimming with these and really any kind of blade fin, long, slow strokes from the hips without bending the knees. What that does is you're pushing the water as you're bending it down. When you get to the end of your fin cycle period, you switch directions, the fin flops down, gives you a little bit more power, and then the cycle starts again. So it's really efficient, and then especially when you get into the carbon fiber and the fiberglass composites, you really get a lot of snap out of them, and you can move really, really fast. Fastest style fin is going to be a monofin, though. This is a little decorative one, but you put your fins together, you get a much larger surface area, and you can get a lot of speed out of these. You do miss out on control without having 2 separate fins to change direction, but for mermaiding and certain kinds of freediving, the monofin is excellent for that. All right, so now we're on to boots. So why boots? Well, we're walking around, we got a lot of heavy gear. We're not walking around with fins on land, so we need some boots to protect our feet. Also, the open heel fins require boots to be comfortable and actually something you can use. So there's a lot of different kinds of boots. Generally, it comes down to low top and high top. And really, personal preference, but I'll tell you the differences. So low tops are generally slip on. They got some kind of protection. Minimalist boot, you're talking maybe 2mm, 3mm neoprene. The high top boots, let's see, are generally going to be 5mm neoprene, sometimes more, sometimes less, but most of ours are 5mm. They've got a zipper, and some of them have a little zipper lock to keep that thing from not coming undone while you're in the water. So what do I prefer? Well, I like the high top boots. One, they're a little bit thicker generally, so they're going to hold up better over time. They're going to give you a little bit more cushion, a little bit more protection, be a little more comfortable. And then also, depending on the water you're diving in, they're definitely going to keep your feet a lot warmer. So if you have a wetsuit up to here, you're going to have a strip of skin that's going to get cold, and a little slip-on booty might not do the trick. High top booty, zip it up. You can even zip it up over or under your wetsuit. It's a big debate. You can ask me about that later. Doesn't really matter. But it's going to keep you a lot warmer, a little bit more protected, and they're going to last longer over time. Your feet aren't generally going to get hot in the water, especially in the tropics. So 5mm boots are just kind of good for everything, where a low top booty might only be good in the tropics. But ultimately it comes down to personal preference and how does it fit in your boot. As you can see, there are some other style boots. There's a big size, but there's some really thick boots out there, and there's some thinner boots, and there's stuff kind of in between. So you want to make sure you size the boot to your fin, because maybe with a very large boot, you'll need an extra large, but with a smaller boot, you'll need a large. Sometimes it might not matter, but you do want to try on the boot with the fin to make sure it's a good fit. Make sure the boot's comfortable while you're fitting it, just kind of like a shoe. You put your feet in there, and it's okay for the boot to be a little big. You don't want it to be a little tight. The neoprene is really forgiving. It kind of forms to your body. It stretches it out. It can kind of shrink to you. But what doesn't change is the hard rubber bottom to it. So if your toes are up against the front of the boot, you might not feel it for the first 10 minutes, but after 40 minutes in the water, now your toenail hurts. So you want a little bit bigger, or at least just really comfortable where you're not feeling your toes boxed in here. Another thing that you want to keep in mind is if you're doing multiple days of diving in a row. For the open water class, you're typically only doing 2 days in a row. Get a good fitting boot, you'll be totally fine. However, 3-4 days of diving, even the best fitting boot, will give you blisters somewhere inside the boot. Really easy way to avoid that is to wear a neoprene sock or a lycra sock. It could be really thin. And we have a bunch of different styles. I have a whole bunch of new ones on order, but you can get just like a little basic spandex, or this is a polypropylene sock in this case. Or most people, I would probably recommend some kind of spandex sock that's real stretchy. They come in different colors if you're into that. Space Coast Army makes really cool patterns. Or you can just get like black, pink, yellow, blue, something like that. But putting on a sock will keep you from having blisters with multiple days of diving. It does feel kind of comfortable in the boots, so I kind of like that. And having the lycra sock on your foot will help the wetsuit go on easier too while you're putting it on. So that's a really good accessory to have, and I would say a necessity if you're doing 3 or more days of diving in a row.
All right, so we do have a few required accessories for the open water class. One of them is called a submersible marker buoy, or we call them an SMB. They're also called an inflatable safety tube, and a lot of divers call them a safety sausage. So we're gonna go over the different types. The most basic form is this style. It comes with like a clip that you clip off to your BCD, and then it's all rolled up like this. If you want to see the version when it's out, so this is what it looks like when it's hanging on you. You would hang this onto your BCD, and then let's say we come up from a dive and we're separated from the boat. We unfurl the safety sausage, we blow it up. There's a little one-way valve here, and then we stick it in the water, and then boats can see you. It's really important for boats, not only boat safety, but if you're shore diving, to make sure boats can see you, and also so that you can get back to the boat. So that's why this is required for your class. All open water classes require this as a tool for your class. There are other kinds of safety sausages, or SMBs, that you can get. Another style is an open bottom SMB. So that's like this style, and this style has the same exact one-way valve that we had before. The only difference is you have a one-way valve in the bottom, so you can actually use your regulator to inflate it. This is really good if you're in a lot of waves and it's really hard to get to your one-way valve to blow it up. Maybe you're stressed, maybe you're tired. This is going to be the fastest way to inflate your SMB. The other reason it's really nice is you can use this for other types of diving, and you can deploy your safety sausage from the bottom of the water. So this one-way valve allows us to hook our SMB to a reel. Some SMBs come with a reel. Some of them you have to get them separate. We carry all of those. And if you just want to put the reel on the loop, you inflate it, make it neutrally buoyant, and after you inflate it, we'll go to the surface. We'll tell the boat, hey, I'm doing my safety stop, come and pick me up. Again, alerting the boat where you are, and also alerting other boats where you are. This one also comes with a valve on it where you can actually pull the valve and deflate it underwater, other than just the one-way valve from down here, which is a little more difficult to get the air out. So this is really, really nice version of the safety sausage. Another version is with this style. It has actually a piece on here where you can actually connect this to your BCD, to the quick disconnect on your low pressure inflator hose, and you can actually inflate it underneath the water or at the surface from your BCD. So that's also a good option if you have somebody that would need to be able to inflate without blowing up with their mouth. And they come in lots of different colors. We usually carry them in all different kinds of colors so you can coordinate it. For the golf here, we really like the dual color, so it's nice and bright. You want to try to stay away from greens in the golf, but anything bright should be good to alert other divers and boats where you are. All right, another really cool thing about having an overpressurization valve on your safety sausage is you can't overinflate it either, so you wouldn't be able to, you know, explode the safety sausage. That's another good thing about having this accessory on your SMB. Also, you can get really cool colors. We have a lot of different colors. Some of them are 2 colors, some of them are 1 color. You can match your colors to your gear. This one actually has a dolphin that's on the top of it, so you can have your own identifying mark. So either your buddy or your boat captain or deckhand knows who you are. And then we also have different lengths as well. Anything that's less than 4 feet is probably not going to be seen by a boat, especially if there's any sort of waves. We get really short choppy waves, and on the East Coast we get really big rolling waves. For the really big rolling waves, it's better to have a little bit taller safety sausage so that, you know, boats can see over the big roller waves. In the Gulf, you probably want something that it's at least 4 to 5 feet, so that through the choppy waves they can see you as well. And of course, once you learn your skill in your class, you'll know that you can kind of hold it high up in the air so that the boat can see you really well. All right, so next are whistles. So though they are small, they are still a very important part of dive gear. A whistle kind of goes hand in hand with the submersible marker buoy. I kind of like to keep them together, and we can show you different ways of keeping them together underwater so that you can accessorize yourself with them separately. So this is a basic whistle. You basically just want an auditory device to use at the surface in case you get separated from the boat so that they can find you, right? So you've got 1 visual, your arm, 2 visual, your safety sausage, 1 visual, your voice, yelling, 2 audio, your whistle. So this is probably the most basic whistle. We also carry the storm whistles. These are Coast Guard certified whistles. Are very, very loud, so they're really, really good if you do a lot of diving out in the ocean. Especially like spearfishing and other types of activities where you might get separated from your buddy. These are really nice because they're really loud and they will get somebody's attention. We also carry other accessories, obviously not required, but great for divers who want to stay recognized. So this is what we call a dive alert. So this actually hooks up to your BCD, the low pressure inflator hose hooks onto it, and you can actually, a lot of divers call these squawkers underwater because it kind of sounds like a squawk underwater. And you can actually turn it on so people can hear you underwater as well. At the surface you can hear it too, and it's super loud. So these are really good if you want people to get your attention underwater, or you want them as a safety device underwater as well.